Hello, thank you. I have a lot to say, and we only have 35 minutes from now, so I will have to speak fast, which means you have to listen just as fast, unless you won't understand. So just best of luck to the translator, and from now on we try to get through a short introduction and then 2 examples from what we have done. But first, a very, very brief background of where we are. So, as you already heard, we are in Bodø, which is part of Nordland County. We'll get back to that. We're a city of 53,000 people in a region of around 243,000 people. So Bodø is the regional capital. And the main feature, I think, to place us on the map is that we are above the Arctic Circle. And if you want to summarize the modern history of the city, it's about 2 things. It's about fish and flying. So the last 7 decades, it's an aviation city, both as a military Air Force base and as one of the hubs in North Norway's aviation connections. And before 1950, it's mostly about fish. So, I'm from Oslo. It was mentioned. I moved to this place. This is actually from where I live. I moved from a backyard in Oslo to this view in 2013. This picture is not here because I want to brag about my view. I do want to brag about my view, but that's not the main point. The main point is that this picture is from around this time of year. And this is what we call the dark time. So most of my friends from Oslo, they have a vision of Northern Norway that when you enter winter, you enter darkness. And it's going to be dark until May. That's not completely true. This is a November day. As long as it's clear, even though the sun never actually gets above the mountains in the east, it can be quite colorful. So the point of the picture is rather to say that doing a European Capital of Culture project is an opportunity to retell some stories, to tell the story of your city or your region in a way that you think is more fair, more correct. So a more fair way of describing Bodø and Nordland is that it's colorful and it's nuanced and it's not just about darkness. So in a way you can say that it's an opportunity to see the world from our perspective. So this is Europe from our perspective. It's the same Europe, it's just that for a year now, or for a couple of years, we had the opportunity to see this from our perspective. This is how we view you guys, or the rest of Europe. It looks a bit different. So, back to the region. This is Nordland County. So Norway has a county level of administration that for some reason, historic reason, it has a set of tasks like dental services and upper secondary school and transportation and stuff. It's a very strange construction, but anyway, it kind of works. This part of Norway is called Nordland. So just to compare to this region, this is the same drive. So if you're lucky, you can drive from Bindal in the south to Andenes in the north in about 12.5 hours. Right now, that's not possible because the main road is closed and there are no detours unless you go into Sweden. So right now it's about 17 hours to drive to the region. Still, it's one region. It has something to do with identity. You can still say you are from Nordland and people will understand what you say. So it does have a function with regards to identity. Here's the city of Bodø in 1935. We have described in our bid that it's, as I said, it's an opportunity to talk about change of narratives. And we argued that we already have a culture for handling change. So at this point, the city has been moved 3 times. The first 3 times the city changed was because of different technological advancement. So when boats did not have propellers, it made sense that it was at the beach. When boats got propellers, it was moved to this spot. And then a few years after this, we went through another big change. So May 1940, the city was more or less gone. And in this rebuild, we ended up with a situation like this. So this is Bodø today. The airport is practically in the middle of the city. The right side of the picture is the former military base, now being rebuilt. I'll get back to that soon. And the inside of the airport is the city. So It's, what is it for you who have visited? Maybe a 15-minute walk from the city center down to the hotels. It's like getting to my gate at Helsinki airport yesterday morning. So it's a compact little city. Again, it's the same theory that it's an opportunity to change perspectives. It's not just far away, it's another flight, but then you're really close. So right now, final part of this introduction, the city is building a new airport because it's no longer a military function. We're trying to become something else than a military city. I won't go into that, we don't have time. I just want to end this introduction with saying that it's already happening and culture is part of the change. You already know something about this concept. Still, I want to just briefly let the main objective of the Capital of Culture program stay on screen. I won't read the whole thing, but entering into today's topic, I just want to underline that this is what they actually say we should do. It's about diversity of cultures in plural tense. So this is one of the main arguments that we've had with artists and the cultural operators over the last few years preparing. The general objective does not contain the term art. It does not contain any definition of the terms art and culture, and it does not say anything about quality. So that's the background for what we are about to talk about. I'll move into the two examples. So far this is going really well with the time. So we have to talk about diversity, which is the topic. The main event, we briefly touched on this yesterday as well. The main event on the regular calendar in Bodø right now is, I'd say, two different things. One is the home games of the football team, because they're doing really well. So 6,000 people on average show up in the stadium. That's fantastic numbers. Sometimes once a week, maybe even twice a week when it's European Games, 6,000 people are singing the local hymn. I won't translate now, but it's about Nordland, about the region, singing together, having a common experience. It's great. People love those numbers, 6,000 people. And they never mention that that means that 90% of the city does not care at all. 90%, the vast majority of people are not there. They do not experience, and it's not that they don't get hold of tickets, but because the stadium holds 8,500 people, this is where the average is around 6,000 people. So most people do not care about the main event. The other big thing is the August Pop Rock Festival. Second week of August, or the second weekend of August every year. They sell out every year, have done so since 2006. That's 9,000 people a night. So it's the equal numbers, 80% maybe, does not care at all. So my claim before we enter the examples is that nothing beats diversity. Nothing can beat diversity. So, example number one. This is Bodø's International Associations. That was not part of our program when we started preparing. We had an experience in the first part of the bid where we claimed, in the pre-selection bid, the first part, we claimed that we are an international city already. We have more than 100 nationalities represented in our city. And the jury got back to us and said, so where are they? Where are they if you have more than 100 nationalities and you don't show a program that includes this, in your claim, big target group? So, this started a process where we started asking questions and listening for answers. And we have this opportunity when we are doing a Capital of Culture. We can do something out of the ordinary. We can do something extraordinary. So we started to meet, very early on started to meet with representatives from our international communities. The good thing, I'm not sure how it works in Latvia, but the good thing in Norway is that everything has an organization. And I mean everything. In a city of like Bodø of 50,000 people, we have, I think it's 680 associations. So that means you have an association for like left-handed knitters, almost. Everything has an association. So obviously, one of the first things you learn when you come to the city is that you have to organize, you have to get an association. Some of those associations are basically about meeting and drinking coffee. So that's what we did. We started meeting once a week in our offices after hours. We had one position doing this almost full time, starting to build a network out of these international associations. They became, now they are a formal organization themselves called Bodø's International Associations, or Bodø Internasjonale Foreninger, BIF. This work did not contain any ideas of artistic content from our side. It contained the question, what do you think we should do? What do you want to do yourself? And this was one of the answers. They really want to show their own culture. They're not too interested in free tickets for our concerts, at least not to begin with. So a free ticket and even a bus pickup from where they live still did not show in the statistics, because it was still our decisions. So starting to actually listen and say, well, what we really want is just 10 minutes on the stage to show what we do. So this is the Filipino community in the main street. So for those who have visited, you will recognize the Glass Gallery Street in the middle of the city center. Very, very, to be fair, from a professional production standpoint, a very simple idea. It's music. It's not even a Nivtech stage. It's right on the ground. There is some light to support this, but all in all, this is, let me guess, 1,500, 2,000 euro technical production. And it's all volunteers. But look what happens in the background here. It's all their friends and neighbors and aunts and uncles and daughters and grandparents and everything that shows up. And most of these people are never to be seen in any of the regular events. So back to our job in a way. What happens is that this starts building trust, that we are someone you can count on. So when we then did this production with Carreau de Temple from Paris, which is really, really high-level professional stage art dancers from Benin and Paris, we start to get the same audience coming back, because we have gained a certain degree of trust. I'm not saying it's perfect, and I'm not saying we've solved all the problems, but it's a very good example of what happens if we have gained the trust by listening and taking the time to actually perform or to produce something that they themselves asked for. The other thing that happens is that they start demanding space. I can say demanding space. They start expecting space in the main productions. So this is the leader of Bodø's Somali organization and the leader of Bodø's Russian organization. They are here backstage on the main stage of the concert hall to be presenters, or conférenciers, how do you say that in English? You understand what I mean? Hosts of one of the bigger events of this year. So again, it doesn't cost a lot for us to give up this space. Normally this would be the CEO or the chair of the board or me as program director going out on the stage and saying, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bodø for tonight's. I am very happy on behalf of our sponsors and so on. It's perfectly fine to let Mohammed and Natalia do that job. And it means a lot because it's center stage. They are all there, the bank people, the mayors, the directors, all of the suits and talking heads are there. And it turned into sort of a model to work with throughout the year. Not complicated, but it's a change of paradigm, and it's a change of how we think and who we give the main spots. Just a very quick, now it's not going so well with the time, but we stay on track. Quick final few examples from Bodø's international associations, just to give you an example of what happens. Again, now we are back to top-level visual arts. This is Partin Bastan from Iran. He was what's it called? He was prosecuted in Iran. He couldn't go back from after the Florence Biennale last year. He was told by the morale police that you can forget coming back. We have destroyed everything you have done in your workshop and your apartment. His friends and family said, stay where you are, stay in Europe. So he ended up in Bodø by coincidence. And this is what we managed to do, like last minute for our September program. He got a small fee to work with, and we could buy some material, so he created this iron hand that is casting a ballot, and he called this is the wings of democracy. It's a hand casting a ballot. The point of the picture is not to document his work, because then you should see the rest of it. The point is, when we arrived at the vernissage of this exhibition, there was a whole row of taxis outside of the gallery, and we were thinking, wow, this is a success. People are really showing up with it's a whole row of taxis, but the taxis didn't leave. Because what had happened was, of course, that for the first time, at least in my experience, we had taxi drivers as our audience. So they had all taken an hour off. So you can see here Bodø taxi. He's there because he knows the guy in front or in the middle of the picture who is the translator for Partin. So this kind of audience, it doesn't happen by itself, but it doesn't happen by control either. This is synergies and consequences, I think, of this kind of work and thinking over time. So I'll leave this part almost on schedule by just letting this run in the background. And I'll finish example 1 with talking about quality versus quantity. And this is numbers. If there's any politicians or decision makers here, this is my favorite part of example number 1. What you see is June 1st this year. It's called Children's International Day. It's from, I think it's from a Polish tradition with June 1st. Exactly. So it's from, at least it's from the eastern part of Europe. So we do this now every year, June 1st. We do not interfere with what the associations program. So what you see here is someone is doing artistic work, someone is putting up a basketball court, someone is running. We don't interfere with anything that those associations do. What we do is when we get to 1 minute 30 seconds, you will see one super high quality children's production that we spent money on. So in this program, without making any difference between what is A program, what is B program, it's all part of one program. And in there, we just added a children's concert that we know is absolutely top level, and hoped, fingers crossed, that people would show up. So in numbers, what happens is that this day, when we count the tele data of the city center, we had almost 18,000 people in the city center. I think I mentioned this yesterday as well. Here they are. That's it. That's what we did. The few seconds you got there, that's what we did. The rest was up to them, up to the associations. This whole day is a 20,000 euro production. It's 18,000 people in the city center, and I would say most of them are people that we do not catch in any other way. So everything on this day, everything is for free, and the cafes and restaurants of Bodø absolutely love us now. Okay, moving on to example number 2. Young people. We had youth as our main target group. We're actually going to manage on time. Youth was our main target group. We were in a context in Bodø where we were doing quite well with youth work. So the municipality was already quite trained or skilled in doing involvement work with youth. So the basic idea of this project was to scale it up, to do a real experiment in youth involvement, and to see if we can include them even more in actual productions. So moving into the actual examples. This, I think, is what people think of if you say youth culture. Quite often, I just claim this personally. If you go out on the street and you say, what's your latest youth culture experience? It will look something like this. So this is Norway's main pop star, Sondre Justad. Fortunately, he's from our region, so we can argue that he's one of us. But this is kind of the the picture, the magic moments. So this is kind of what we want to reach. We want to create these moments. But this is basically the cherry on top. This is the final product, and we tend, as producers, we tend to go way too fast for the final product. So this time, fortunately, we had time and resources to really do this the proper way. So this is 18 months before the concert. The man in the background sitting by the screen is Göran. He's the director of this main festival I just mentioned. So he's the one we worked with to do the one big rock concert of our program this year. He got let's say collaboration agreement with us on one premise. We wanted him as part of the whole process with the youth festival. So this is where it starts. So this is pizza, soda, and time with a true professional. Just take the time to ask questions. How do we make a festival? So not asking him to produce a festival, but asking him for time with the kids to start asking questions. From this, we get a youth board. So these guys, again, they meet once a week. They did so for the last 2 years before our opening. They prepared not just the festival, but also an open call for kids of their own age. So 13 to 19-year-olds, they had a separate series of open calls. By the way, before I start this little clip, that is where the real challenge is. So managing public money for a 17-year-old, that's a real challenge. The real challenge is not really to get the kids in the room, and it wasn't really to convince the festival director of spending his time as basically a mentor. That's doable with money. That's, of course, if we pay him for this time, it's possible to do. Managing public money for this age group, that's something different. But it's possible. At least we're fortunate in Norway, so it's possible. So this preparation work had been ongoing for almost a year when we got to our opening night. I'll just let this run in the background. So this is the opening night of Bodø 2024 on February 3rd. And you can see it's the same story repeating. Again, it's built a certain degree of trust. This is a huge event in Bodø. I'm not sure how this would be in Latvia, but this is almost 900 kids between 13 and 19. It cost, I think that show cost €1.50 approximately. So it wasn't really a challenge for most people. I think even we had a list where people could say, I really don't have €1.50. The point is, the money is, we don't get a return for this. What we get is, again, trust from what is now becoming a quite big group of kids. So the final moment of this show on February 3rd is coming up right now. So this is pretty soon. I think we will get the youth board when they present the Schools Out Midsummer Festival, the one that we just saw the pictures from. So the first 900, oh no, maybe I had my back to the screen when it was there. Point is still that from a year of work, taking the time to sit in these meeting rooms, to answer the questions, to listen, we already had the first 900 people in this target group for the festival. So when the real work started in, let's say this is probably second half of May, they're starting to prepare the venue. We now have a group of people in pink Youth Crew media shirts. We have a group of kids in helmets and hoodies. Unfortunately, they are very gender-based, these groups, but that's a different story. We got only, except maybe 1 or 2 people, we got girls for the media crew, we got boys for the helmets. So be it. We cannot solve everything at once. But all in all, we had close to 200 kids between 13 and 19, part of the setup, of the actual production of this show. And then we get to the final points here. Let's see. Yeah, we are on schedule. So we get to the main event again. What the city should be considering, I think, when we now look back at this year. what they should be valuing is moments like this. Because this is almost impossible to create with money. It's a diverse group of a challenging group in our society, boys between 15 and 18, so they're too young to go out on the clubs, and they're old enough to start drinking, being by themselves. This is where you end up with a lot of, or too many people in social exclusion. This is where we lose them. So they can maybe quit the football team because they're getting too cool for that, and they're still not in a system where we know where they are. So for the local police to have these meetings, they now, again, they love us for something that we did not plan for or expect. They just put everyone that they could afford to have on work for this. So you see, he's not in service. He's not in the mass service uniform. He's just in a reflective vest. He's in what you would call precautionary service, maybe. But these meetings, to have what ended up with 3,500 kids between 13 and around 20, in one place, alcohol-free, with security at entrance, not a single problem. Someone hurt their foot in the mosh pits, but I think it was one or two. Other than that, everything went well, and they had a full afternoon of time to do exactly this. Talk, get to know each other, build trust again, and I'm absolutely sure that this has value when these kids, in this picture is boys, probably value for the girls as well, but I think this is this is the example. When they meet again, when these guys in a few years' time turn 18, and maybe they need help, or they are in trouble themselves, this is part of what I think we should value as public operators. And then I'll let this run for the conclusion. So, what I've tried to say is that the events, the content, I think we should consider the cherry on the top. The real work is the cultural work that leads up to it, building the trust with the target groups. I am aware that managing public money in this way can be a challenge. To us, we were able to go quite far. We actually paid grants to 16, 17-year-olds through a system where I won't go into that. It was a nightmare to set it up, but it was possible. The rest, what we have on screen now, is perfectly doable. So you have to, in some way, and here's my conclusion, we have to consider where we can share power in decisions. We have to consider where we can give up our power of definition. We have to consider where we can give up our control of quality, and consider maybe part of the goal with the European Capital Culture is to find new connections, new target groups, and to set up, to challenge our way of thinking just as much as funding something that we know is already high quality. Because in this system, we have some nice examples through the year where these target groups start to show up in the productions that we do ourselves. So the Afghan family that all of a sudden showed up to a concert at the concert hall gave us some new experiences, because we understood that nothing was presented in their language. It wasn't clear to them when it started. It wasn't clear to them in what hall it was. So the point is, we learned a lot about target groups that not normally do not show up in our venues. And yeah, so final point, as this now comes to an end, this video. We considered at the beginning, when I showed you the picture from the meeting room with the festival director, the first discussion was how big is it possible to produce a youth festival that does not sell alcohol, that is from 13 years of age, where they co-produce, they help out with the booking. How big is it possible to do that in our city? We said, so the target group in total is 3,000 kids. So maybe 1,500, maybe 2,000 And we sort of challenged each other, and we ended up, no, we set it up for 3,000, the whole target group. In the end, it sold 3,500. And it wasn't until the day of the concert that we now have on screen that we understood that this word of mouth had spread far out over the region. So we had buses coming from 4 hours away into this venue and then picking them up after the show at 11:30 in the night. This means that we could do a lot more than we actually believed in when we started. It was all done through listening and giving away power of definition. And as I said yesterday, for those who were there, our main enemies does not come from the audience and the challenged target groups. It comes from the cultural operators, our colleagues, that was not willing to take part in a challenge like this. Okay, thanks.